but you've got to stand out. You've got to actually show them why you are the best organisation to do this job.
It seems you can miss one thing, boom, you're ruled out of it.
There's one person that wins, so you have to be the best.
G'day, Solly from PWD. Got Tara Whitney from Whitney Consulting with us today. Tara, what do you do?
I am the CEO of Whitney Consulting. We help organisations to get funding by writing grants, business cases and tender submissions for them.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Just over 8 years now.
Wow. How many tenders or grants do you think you would have done in that time?
Well, I can't tell you how many we've done. I couldn't even think. A lot, but we've secured over 280 million so far for our clients.
Wow. And how did the business start? What got you into that game?
Yeah, so my background was working for WA state government and I was an assessor. So I was assessing business cases and grant applications.
Right.
And I moved out to the Wheatbelt region.
Okay.
And so I couldn't work for government, so I thought I'll do the other side because I love writing.
Yeah. And
so I started writing the grants and the business cases.
Right.
And the tenders flowed on from there.
Right. And do you still live in the Wheatbelt or have you moved back to Smoke?
Some of my staff do. We've got staff all over Australia, mainly in WA, but they're all over every region.
Right.
No, I moved back to Perth just before COVID. So.
Yeah, lucky.
Oh,
yeah, maybe not so lucky. You could have stayed out there.
Lucky, but I do miss Pingelly a lot. So.
Yeah, we've actually got a couple of clients because it's real farming cattle town, isn't it?
It's real farm. It's sheep and grain.
Sheep, yeah. Before you started working with PWD, what did you do with your marketing? Were you just running it yourself or did you have any structure in place or another agency? How did you handle things?
Yeah, we were running it ourselves. So I had a virtual assistant who was essentially taking guidance from me as to what to do. I have no background in it whatsoever. And I have to say that it was my most hated business task. So, but we did our best.
Yeah.
And yeah, for PWD, it was a lot more ad hoc.
Yeah. I would imagine you were probably canvassed, cold called, cold emailed, solicited prior to working with PWD.
Yes.
I guess why didn't you take up any of those offers? And conversely, then why did you choose to work with us?
So I guess I've dealt with a lot of businesses. We help businesses with tenders and grants, and I've heard some horror stories. So I'd heard a lot of horror stories of people who didn't own their own website and it was taken away from them, who'd got stuck into contracts that were costing an absolute fortune and were doing nothing for them. And so I'd heard a lot of horror stories. So I was not interested in any way with anyone that reached out to us. I needed to know that it was someone I could trust and that wasn't going to do anything unscrupulous and was actually going to achieve results.
Yeah, funny you should say that. Literally just today, one of my clients has been bought out and taken over, and they've had their lawyers sending over documents to say that the IP for the website is theirs. And I said to my member of staff that was giving me this document, I said, they don't need it. It's already in our T's and C's. It says any intellectual property we create for you is yours, provided you've paid for it. So, because there are those where they own your, or they'll say you own the design, we own the code. Well, what's it without the code? You end up with something that's definitely not yours.
And there's tricks, and when you don't know and understand,
you can be caught out very easily.
You can be caught out.
You can be caught out. And the thing is, I think with service retainer contracts, we legally you can't hold a client to a fixed term contract anymore. Those things are gone, but there are still agencies that will try that on. They'll say, no, you're locked in for 12 months or 24 months or, if, by the sounds of it, people that have done law, you just can't get away with it. But of course, naive customers that don't realise they get threatened and bullied and kind of scared and end up in these things and they pan out shelling out money. And I do find, I was talking to a client at the weekend and he says, Oliver, I keep getting harassed by all these people. I said, if they keep ringing you they can't be that good because people would be ringing them. If they were a great agency, they wouldn't need to cold call people.
Yeah, 100%. I'm way too busy to call people to ask them if they need a grant. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, if you're good at what you do, people will call you. What made you look for help? What challenges were you facing in the business that made you think, I need some assistance with this? And I guess you got to that juncture where you thought, hire somebody internally or outsource. So what was the breaking point?
So there was a couple of things. Firstly, as I said, I really dislike doing it. It is something that I just don't enjoy. I don't know about it and I don't enjoy it. So I didn't like the fact that I had to do it as the CEO. I was like, can somebody else do this? And secondly, we got to the point where we're WA's largest specialist grant company. And the next step was we wanted to expand into other states. Now, my background obviously was in WA and in regional WA in particular. So I had the networks already established when I started the business in WA. I didn't have that in any other states. So I really needed to nail the SEO and everything. So when we expanded to South Australia to start with, that was when we decided that, no, we actually need some help here. We really have to target things and really do it properly. And no, I don't want to do it myself.
And I guess what's the ROI for you? What if you manage to acquire a new customer, what does that look like from a return on investment point of view?
Yeah, well, it certainly covers PWD costs, that's for sure.
And truly. Under one client?
Oh, one client would more than cover what we pay. Yeah. So one client a month would probably double, at a minimum, double what we have to pay PWD. So
the return on investment
is huge.
Is 100% there, which is great. So what obstacles were standing in the way of working with PWD or another agency? I guess what hesitations did you have?
It really was just the hesitation of, I need to trust these people.
A leap of faith. Huh?
Yeah, I need to trust these people and I need to know that the return is going to be there, that it's actually going to achieve what I want it to achieve, which in the end is phone calls, requests for quote coming through. Yeah. So that was really the only thing.
Right. And what's it been like working with our team and some of the key members that you deal with on a weekly or a monthly basis? What's communication like? What's reporting been like? And be very candid.
Yep.
Good, bad and ugly.
No, it's great. We probably will have been a little bit annoying for them in that partway through, we were like, the work done on South Australia was great. So we started to get all of these phone calls from South Australia and that was wonderful. But then towards the end of last year, I realised, hang on a minute, we've got a WA state election and a federal election in very close proximity. And we do predominantly government grants, government tenders. So, and majority is WA or federal. So everything stops when there's an election, there's caretaker mode, everything stops. So I realised, we need to actually change our focus a little bit.
Diversify.
Yeah, we need to actually not just focus just on South Australia. We need to actually be doing a few other things.
Right.
So I reached out to the team and said, what are the chances? I know you've got your plans and I know you're doing it and it's all working, but what are the chances we could maybe pivot a little bit and change what we're doing? And they were like, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that for you. And did that and that was going really well. And then they actually reached out and said, you know what, we've got a bit of capacity. We could focus on something else. Is there something else you want to focus on? And I said, well, actually our grant writing workshops.
Right.
We've just created a new one, which is about how to write grants using AI. So we'd really like to focus on getting the word out there on that as well. And they were like, oh yeah, great, excellent. And so they jumped on that and started to look into it.
Awesome. How good's that? And how you're doing tenders for businesses as well?
Yep.
Because back in the day, there's some prolific companies in Perth that are kind of known for that, and that's obviously a new product for you. I guess why wouldn't somebody just have a crack at doing a tender themselves?
It's very similar for grants, the same reason really, which is that it takes a lot of time for starters. So it takes you away from your daily, what you have to do. You actually have to really focus on it and dedicate a lot of time to it to do it properly. But also you need to know how to government speak. And a lot of people don't know how to government speak and think. And a lot of people don't know how to do that.
Right.
And when it's your own project or your own company, sometimes you just assume knowledge. And you find it really hard to brag about yourself. Whereas when somebody else is doing it for you, they don't assume any knowledge because they don't know your project in depth. They don't know. So they can really explain it in terms that anyone who reads the tender or the grant has to understand it, because we have to understand it to write it. Whereas if you're writing it yourself, you will assume knowledge and you will miss things out. You won't explain things. You won't tell them things because you just forget about them. But we make sure that anyone that reads it would understand it thoroughly.
And is it a case with tenders? We've applied for, I hate tenders. And I don't think we've won a tender, to be honest. We should probably come see you. But they seem very, black and white. From an assessor's point of view, it seems you can miss one thing, boom, you're ruled out of it. Is that the case?
It depends on how competitive it is. If there's a lot of people going for the tender and some good people going for the tender, then yes, for sure. You have to nail every aspect of it. Otherwise, you're not going to be the one that wins. Usually with tenders, there's one person that wins. So you have to be the best.
Yeah.
So not only do you have to comply with everything to the nth degree, but you've got to stand out. You've got to actually show them why you are the best organisation to do this job and you're going to do it the best way and give them everything that they want as compared to another company who's not as good as you, essentially what you're trying to argue.
Yeah. How big is the monetary value on the tender? How generally, I know they're weighted differently, obviously, but...
Pricing, you mean?
Pricing, yeah. So often when we've applied for tenders, we're like, we'll just put it in 50 grand less than what we think, they've kind of indicated the range would be, just to sort of snag it, just to kind of get the first run on the board, because we've not been great at tenders. Is price a major factor, do you feel, from...
Again, that does depend on the industry and it depends on the buyer. But generally, it's not the main factor, usually.
Right.
Now, with some it is. So if it's a very standard service that you're providing and anyone is going to do it the same way, then it's a price. But if it's a service or something that you're going to do differently, the quality is going to vary depending on the organisation.
Right.
Then what they're looking for is that you're the best. You're going to deliver the best quality. You're the most trusted. You've got the biggest capacity.
Sure.
You're actually going to nail the brief.
Yep.
And then they'll look at the pricing to go, well, we want these people. Can we argue that we should get them from a price value for money perspective? You want them to want you first before they look at the pricing.
Yeah.
But if you've got a commodity that's very simple, if you're supplying products and the product is the same from one organisation to the other, then it's going to come down to pricing. Yeah.
I think another, probably you'll tell me this is a myth or not. This content's more for you than me. But another myth is that the winner of the tender has already been decided when the tender gets put out. So there's, I guess, that skepticism from applicants that it's just a bit of a parade. They've already got somebody in mind that they want to give the tender to, and they just have to go through the due process to show that it was above board and, wasn't done through.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to say that never happens, but I will say that if you make it so hard for them to be able to argue that you're not the best, then you can push that person out.
Right.
There are times for sure where they've already used this company before, so that it's an incumbent. They've already used them and they just want to continue on with them, but they have to do the tender. That doesn't change the process, especially if it's government. Government must have a panel assess the tender. There must be somebody independent on that panel.
Right.
So they've got to argue with that independent that their chosen, the one that they want, is the best.
So,
and if their chosen person, because I often have people say, we don't need to do that much work because they want us. Well, that's playing with fire.
It's a bit arrogant.
Because that's really playing with fire. Because if you don't actually put in your best effort and the next person does, they're going to, they don't owe you anything. They're not going to risk their jobs for your business if you haven't put in the best tender.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know that somebody that happened to recently, he had a building maintenance company and he thought exactly that. And he got ousted by an incoming enthusiastic competitor. And boom, before he knew it, he was having to shed staff and, downsize pretty quickly and adapt and then go out into the private market when he'd been sort of having a great time on these government contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time because they get complacent and they think that, they liked us, we've performed well.
Yeah.
We don't have to put
we're mates with them, yeah. But unfortunately, the people which you're mates with are not the ones deciding the outcome.
They're not, and you have to. And these 3 people that are on the panel, they have to score every question. And if they can't, there's nothing there for them to score that's very good. They're going to give you a low score, and you're not going to come out on top. Yeah,
we obviously met through WA Leaders. Olivia Roberts, my general manager, comes there. I obviously come there. And yeah, great organisation to be part of. But that's obviously where we first met. Yeah. But, why did you choose to work with PWD, myself and Olivia and the rest of the team? What was that final choice?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of reasons. Yes, because I did meet you guys there and you became a trusted entity, a known entity. There were a lot of people within the room who worked with you guys. So I got over that concern of, are they going to do anything dodgy?
Sure.
Knowing you and meeting you and seeing that everybody in the room trusted you guys and raved about what you did. And secondly, I had heard about your results. I'd heard your ads on the radio.
The South African guy?
The South African guy. And I've heard him again recently. He's been repurposed into a more and more and more.
He has, yeah.
I've seen that one.
You know how many complaints we get about that ad I've had? I'm just this short of getting death threats.
I love it. I mean, I love it because I know you guys and I also know that it's a genuine client. So,
it's been called moronic. It's been called stupid. We would never work with you because of your radio ads. And I just think to myself, well, it's kind of done the job in the fact that you're emailing and calling me. You're remembering us, which is half the battle, right? So.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, that I had heard you on the radio. I'd heard that ad, and then meeting you guys made me go, oh, okay, yeah, they're.
Yeah.
I know that they perform. I know that they do a good job. I've heard about some of the results.
Yeah.
And now I've actually put a face to the name.
Yeah.
And I've got a room full of referrals. Yeah.
Yeah. Since starting work with PWD, what results have you seen? If you can quantify that at all, try to quantify it. But from number of phone calls, increase in revenue, what sort of results have you experienced?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we certainly have had a lot more phone calls from South Australia. We were having none, and we're not having none anymore. So we are getting a lot of requests for quote and phone calls from South Australia. So that's the first outcome. And then secondly, as I said, we were quite concerned about and expecting this year to be quite quiet because of the 2 elections back to back. And so we pivoted to that. And then February was our biggest month ever.
Wow.
So from me sort of panicking that caretaker mode, when we were smack bang in the middle of caretaker mode in February because WA election was in March. So, yeah, I mean, I think that speaks for itself, really, the biggest month we've ever had.
In the whole time of trading?
Whole time of trading.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. Since working with PWD, what 3, advantages, benefits or differences have you noticed in your business and perhaps that stress that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's definitely a relaxation. I mean, I'm a lot more relaxed about the fact that I know people can find us. I know people will be finding us from both WA and South Australia. I also know that I've got direction when we will be going to expand into Queensland. I know that it can be done.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of me pulling the trigger and we'll get it done. So there's that. There's also the fact that I don't have to write these blogs anymore. I've been so impressed with the quality of, as a writer, professional writer, been so impressed with the quality of the writing. Whoever's writing these blogs is a really, really high quality writer and researcher, because they are really nailing knowledge about tenders and grants that I'm like, oh, that's impressive.
Yeah.
How did you know that? You must have done quite a bit of research to draft up these blogs. So that was one of the things I hated doing. I hated writing them, and I hated
It's time.
reviewing them.
It's that time.
It's
burn.
time, yeah. And so having somebody else do that has been really nice.
Yeah. Content writing and the quality of content writing is it's hard, especially now with the advent of AI and these large language models, which are just spurring out the same stuff again and again and again. They don't really add much value to the internet, I feel. So, PWD does have writers which, we pay very well to go out and do the research and write properly, rather than just churn out stuff in the Philippines or India and things like that. And it's hard because we have some clients that value that. We have some clients who want everything for the lowest dollar, but then still expect high quality. And unfortunately, those don't go hand in hand.
Yeah, no. And it's, as you say, with AI, it's all fluffy. Whereas the blogs that I've been getting, there's detail, specific detail, and it's very high quality writing, but also really, really well researched.
Yeah, awesome. As a valued client of ours, would you recommend PWD to other businesses? And if so, why?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that it's something that businesses should consider. It's obviously an investment. So it's not, it's, as you say, we're paying for good quality writing, good quality research, good quality service. So it is an investment that you need to think about, can I afford this? But like I said, the return on the investment, in some cases you go, well, can you afford not to? Because like I said, for me, just one client more than covers the investment per month.
Yep.
So it would be silly not to.
Yep.
And on top of that, it's also saving me a whole lot of time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to look at your hourly rate, what that is, and you toiling away writing blogs or trying to organise campaigns versus that kind of output. To me, I see marketing often. I described it, the analogy I used, as an insurance policy. Because what's going to cost you more, the weekly, monthly retainer and marketing spend if you're doing paid ads, let's say, versus the phone not ringing.
Yes, exactly.
And you're having to pay full-time employees because you've still got that employment, you've still got the superannuation, you've still got to make those bills, rent and all liabilities and insurances, etc. So for me, advertising has always been something that I've spent quite strongly on, with the view that I don't want the phone to stop ringing because I get scared when it stops ringing. I start thinking like you in election time during February. So that for me is every month, not every 3 years. So last time I was at a conference and I was talking to somebody about applying for a grant. He reckoned he could just use AI, ChatGPT, to do that grant application and she'll be right, so to speak. Is that the case?
No, she won't be right. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. And I heard one lady say that, you can write a grant in 15 minutes with AI. And I thought, well, you can also make lasagna in 15 minutes with AI. If you've done all of the prep and everything, it's all done, with
a pre-made meal.
Pre-made meal. It's you really need to think about what is it that AI can and can't do. AI is very fluffy. It doesn't give specifics and details. You can try to write a grant with AI, but there are only certain parts of the grant writing journey that they can help you with. They can't tell you what your project is. They can't tell you what the cost is going to be. On all of those specifics, they can't nail it. You need to make sure that every question that you're answering in a grant has evidence. You've got to evidence all your claims.
Right.
And so they can't do that. AI can't do that.
It doesn't know enough.
It doesn't know. It doesn't know.
Yep.
It doesn't know, and it can't go and find that research. It can't do it. So it's very dangerous to think that you can use AI to write an entire grant. AI can certainly help. It can certainly reduce the time. And it can certainly help to strengthen areas that you might be weak in if you're not particularly good at writing, or if you are struggling to get the word limit down, which does happen a lot with grants. But you cannot just rely on AI. And if you do, I can guarantee you're not going to get the grant.
Right.
We have a grant writing with AI workshop that we've just recently developed specifically for this, to help people to learn how to use it in a grant writing context, because AI is not going anywhere. So we need to figure out how to use it, but how to best use it. And I have seen some applications that were clearly written with AI. And honestly, I don't know any details, any specifics. I don't know anything that I could score. And that's the thing to remember, is that the questions are all scored. And if there's no evidence and detail in the answer, you're going to get a 0.
Yeah.
So AI can say, oh, this is a wonderful project all at once in as many different ways and as many different words as it wants to say it. But the assessor is not going to give it a score. They're not going to view it as wonderful.
They're going to see straight through it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you can use AI to write grants, but you need to know exactly how to use it and how not to use it. And the personal aspect is never going to go away. There is always going to need to be an element of the individual, the human, coming in and understanding what is the funding body wanting.
Yep.
How does my project align with what the funding body wants, and how can I prove to them that I'm going to give them that? That's always going to require humans.
Yeah, I've experienced this myself. I saw one of my staff, Chris, who had written a lot of a tender response using AI, and it was so obvious because you could see one section which was just not his language and was quite flowery, had some Americanisms in it and stuff like that. And then you could see it sort of went back to PWD tonality and his writing. And I read it and I just said, Chris, there was a lot of repetition in it, heaps of repetition. And it just sounded like it was trying too hard almost, and there wasn't enough evidence. It was just like, we're great and, we're going to do a great job and we've got experience in this, but they didn't have any case studies or facts behind it to kind of back it up. And unfortunately, the window for that one was so close. We just had to put it in anyways, but we kind of knew it wasn't going to come in. Yeah. So it was a bit of an embarrassment, but lesson learned next time. Call Whitney Consulting. What are the most popular grants that businesses are applying for at the moment?
Yeah, so businesses, probably something that businesses need to understand is that when a government is going to provide a grant to a business, there's a very specific reason the government does that.
Yeah.
Most grants are for not-for-profits.
It's not just free money?
Yeah, exactly. So most grants will be for not-for-profits, there aren't as many for businesses.
Right.
But the ones that are for businesses, there's probably maybe 3 categories that exist. And the first is if there's any grants for startup and innovation and that's government trying to make things happen.
Yep.
They all, however, all 3 versions are all about building the economy and creating jobs at some point.
Right.
Because that's why government want businesses to do stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So one of them is the startup innovation. In that area, there are some grants. There are less grants for startup because it's a risk, and government doesn't love risk. They want to invest their money in something that's a bit more of a sure thing.
Kind of doesn't make sense, though.
Yeah, but there are some. There are some for startups and innovation. There are a lot more grants for businesses in regional areas,
right? Because
obviously, in regional areas, they are facing challenges that the metro areas are not necessarily. So they want to build the region, attract people. So there's a lot more regional business grants. And then the third aspect is anything that's the focus of that particular government. So if that government is particularly focused on for example, value adding to our primary industries. So that has been a focus recently, we want to value add to the grain, the sheep, whatever it is that our primary agriculture is doing. We want value add. We want to create food from it. We don't want to just send all of our grain overseas.
Sure.
We want to actually do something to value add because then we get more money into the state. So government, both state and federal, tend to have their focus areas for certain things. It might be space, defence industry, whatever it is. They're the areas then that there will be more grants for those.
Right.
So you really need to know whether your business is a focus area for your particular government, state or federal. If you're in a regional area, you can find more grants, or if you're doing something particularly innovative.
Right. And how much does it cost? Because that's what everybody that's watching is going to want to know. To have Whitney Consulting help me obtain a grant. Is it a percentage or a fixed fee? Or
Yeah, so it's all fixed fee up front. We don't take any of the
commission
because you can't do that. So from a grants perspective, you are asking for money to spend on certain things to deliver the project. So you can't spend any of it on me.
On you, okay. You're not going to buy a new car. Or...
Yeah. When I look at the $280 million over 8 years, I'm like, would have been nice.
Just 10% would have been fine.
Would have been nice.
You're living on Jutland Parade in Dalkeith,
Doesn't quite work that way. So no, it's a fixed fee up front, and it's based on the amount of work that's involved. And so every grant is different, every tender is different in terms of how much work to actually apply for that specific one.
Right.
So we have a look at that specific grant and we'll send through a quote to say, right, this is how much it will cost to do it. As a ballpark, we have two different services. One is the full grant writing service, which is obviously more expensive.
So done for you.
Absolutely. Okay. And it's I usually say if you're trying to get 40,000 or more, you might want to look at that service.
Yep.
But our minimum grant writing fee is $4,000 or $5,000.
Right.
It goes up depending on what you need in that grant. Some grants require you to do a full application plus a business case plus other attachments.
Right.
That's obviously a lot more than just the 4,000, but that's our minimum grant writing fee. So you really need to be going for at least 40,000 or so to do that.
Stack up.
Yeah, for it to be value for money and worth it for you.
Yeah.
And then the second option is you write it, we give you advice and guidance along the way, and we then do a full review and feedback. So we use our assessor's cap to read what you've written and say, look, you need to enhance this area here. Don't say that. Say this instead.
Yeah.
You need to, give some more evidence in this area or something like that. And generally, you're talking around $1,500 to sort of $3,000 for that, depending on the size. So if you're going for sort of $20,000, $30,000-ish, then you might want to do that. If you're going for less, so if there's going for sort of $5,000, $10,000 type grants, you really are going to have to write it yourself. We do have a Grant It Yourself, which is an online grant writing course on our website. It's only $197.
Right.
And that's basically to hold your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that step by step, it tells you what to do. Go and get the grant guidelines.
Right.
Read this, look at this, do this. So it really is all videos of me telling you this is what you need to do next and this is how to do it, plus examples and worksheets and that sort of thing.
Right. That's pretty handy. I mean, a good place for somebody to start, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I guess in a lot of ways, if they did that, they'd probably realise some of the work that's ahead of them and may go, actually, no, I'll pay the fee.
Yeah.
I'm time poor, I can't be bothered.
Yes, yeah. Look, honestly, a lot of people just call us, I don't want to know about the advice and review service, just write it. I don't have the time and I don't want to do it. But we love it, so we're quite happy.
Well, you live and breathe it, so that's probably the main difference. And I'm awarded a grant. It's a reasonable amount of money, $40,000, $50,000. And after the fact, is there somebody that audits that? Is there compliance? Is there somebody that checks up that I've spent it correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is. So depends again on the funding body, but they will require you to report on what you've done, what you've spent, how you spent it, what you've achieved. And there can be an audit. So sometimes they actually require you to get a financial audit done just as part of every single project. Every single grant needs to have a financial audit done. Whereas for other grants, that it might be a ad hoc sort of thing, is okay, we'll audit this one and we'll audit that one.
Right.
Others, it might be only if something happens that they audit you. But you certainly do have to do what's called an acquittal, which is a final report at the end to say this is how we spent the money, what we spent it on, and this is what we achieved.
Right. They want to see what they're getting for their
absolutely.
money, which is fair enough, right?
Well, essentially, they're investors. They're investing in your project, and they want to know that they got their money's worth.
Yeah, and it did actually achieve something.
Yeah.
That's good. Anything else?
I think so.
You'd like
That's great.
Your content?
No, Dom will be very happy. My
social media.
Social media.
Yeah,
She'll
cool.
be very happy with that.
Very good.